Number 3, he will have to restore the state of Israel. And number 4, that Israel must grow until it becomes the ruling state in the world, and that Messiah must rule the world from Jerusalem. Only then will the golden age of Sulaiman alayhi salam return. I think you would agree with me, number 1, that the Second World War would be the turning point, clearly. Because in the Second World War, all the Allied troops on the continent of Europe, which were fighting Hitler, were under one command. Was it a British general? Huh? No. Who is it? General Eisenhower, an American general. And so here is tangible evidence that the United States has now taken over from Britain as a senior partner. And then a day like a year ends, and it is followed by a day like a month, and one ruling state gave way to another. Britain is no longer the ruling state in the world. The United States of America now becomes the ruling state in the world. And in the same way that there was this mysterious, puzzling, baffling relationship between the island of Britain and the Holy Land, starting from the Balfour Declaration, so too now you have this mysterious, mystifying, baffling relationship between the United States of America and the State of Israel, which was so clearly apparent in Durban. World Conference on Racism and Racial Development, Racial Discrimination. When Israel walked out of the conference, because the whole world combined to condemn Israel for its atrocities on the Palestinian people, guess who walked out with Israel, holding on to Israel coat's tail? Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam. So this puzzling, mystifying relationship between the second ruling state and Israel. The first ruling state and Israel, Britain and Israel. The second ruling state, the United States and Israel, is explained by a day like a month. And then we said that a day which is like a month is now coming to an end. I have come to the conclusion that Dajjal in a day which is like a month is no longer in Britain. Britain now has to give way to another country. Britain was the superpower. Britain was ruling the world. But now another country mysteriously, strangely, inexplicably takes over from Britain as the ruling power in the world and the strategic ally of the State of Israel. This is the United States of America. The United States of America is without any question whatsoever the most important strategic ally of the State of Israel in the world today. Without any question whatsoever. Britain controlled the Holy Land from 1919 until 1948. In 1948, Britain acted as the midwife for the baby to be born. The baby, of course, was the state of Israel.
It is modern Western civilization which presided over the return of the Jews to the Holy Land. Without the modern West, they could not have done it. It is modern Western civilization which created the state of Israel. The European people did it, not the Oriental Jews. When Britain acted as the midwife for the state of Israel to be born in 1948, I believe it was 11 minutes later that the United States recognized Israel.
And I know that when I visit AIPAC, I'm among friends, good friends. Friends who share my strong commitment to make sure that the bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable today, unbreakable tomorrow, unbreakable forever. I have been proud to be a part of a strong bipartisan consensus that has stood by Israel in the face of all threats. That is a commitment. That is a commitment that both John McCain and I share, because support for Israel in this country goes beyond party. Our alliance is based on shared interests and shared values. Those who threaten Israel threaten us. Israel has always faced these threats on the front lines, and I will bring to the White House an unshakable commitment to Israel's security. We know that the establishment of Israel was just and necessary, rooted in centuries of struggle and decades of patient work. But 60 years later, we know that we cannot relent, we cannot yield, and as president, I will never compromise when it comes to Israel's security.
That the authority of the Supreme Council of the United Nations, is that what it's called? Security Council, sorry. Security Council. That the Security Council of the United Nations is vested with supreme authority in the world in all matters pertaining to international peace and security. That was shirk.
What it really is putting the American economy under international regulation.
Yeah.
And those people who have been yelling, oh, the UN's going to take over global
Conspiracy
government.
theorists.
They've been crazy, but now they're right.
Evidence number 2. At the end of the Second World War, in 1945, the international community came together in a conference in Bretton Woods in upstate New York to create a new international monetary system. Prior to this, Britain, London, was the financial capital of the world. Ever since the Bank of England was established maybe 200 years earlier, London was the financial capital of the world. And the ruling currency in the world was the British sterling pound. His Majesty the sterling pound. But now at Bretton Woods something strange happens. The Bretton Woods Agreement confers upon the US dollar the status of the ruling currency. And the Bretton Woods Agreement confers upon Washington the status of the financial capital of the world. Because the International Monetary Fund is now located in Washington.
When they colonize a part of the world, they do not leave, they do not decolonize until and unless they have put in place institutions which will ensure that that society will continue to be ruled by them by proxy, and in the process they seek to transform the rest of mankind into carbon copies of themselves. This never happened before in history. If I do not seek to understand what's happening here, then I've got peanuts in my head. When will I wake up? It is a civilization with a mission in the world. We used to hear it in the days of colonialism. This is called in international relations called jingoism. That we have a mission to civilize mankind. And this mission took them not only to colonize the rest of the world, that's bad enough, but that didn't end the story. When they colonize a part of the world, they do not leave, they do not decolonize until and unless they have put in place institutions which will ensure that that society will continue to be ruled by them by proxy. And in the process, they seek to transform the rest of mankind into carbon copies of themselves. This never happened before in history. If I do not seek to understand what's happening here, then I've got peanuts in my head. When will I wake up? When will I begin to think? When will the world have more to me than McDonald's hamburgers? What's happening?